So today we're going back to basics. We are once again looking at Charlene Manuel's book, Pray Up Your Life, 50 Powerful Prayer Practices. Say that fast, 50 Powerful Prayer Practices to help create the life you desire. Now, I believe that as we learn and deepen our spiritual practice, amazing things happen. Now, I believe this not just because I think it's a good idea, but because I have seen evidence of this many, many times over. And that's why I chose this book as a focus for our winter series, because I figured there can't really be much better than deepening our spiritual practice. That kind of takes care of pretty much everything else. So as we dig into these prayer practices, I invite you to just let them settle in and through you. Some of them will click and really feel like the right thing, and some of them, well, maybe you'll just want to put them on the shelf for a while, and maybe they'll click for you at another time. Last week and this week, we are looking at the very first section of the book, which just focuses on the basics of prayer. Now, there's a paradox that can easily arise when we are talking about prayer on Sundays, and then in metaphysics class, we're talking about our oneness with God, and this is a God beyond supplication, begging, or pleading. And so, like we touched on last week, yes, use whatever God concept works for you. And also understand that these prayer practices don't necessarily have anything to do with praying to a God outside of us. But if that works for you, that's okay. So just let your heart and your inner wisdom lead the way. So without further ado, just a reminder for those of you who don't remember or weren't here last week, each of these prayer practices have like a title, and then they have a Bible quote. So here we go. Prayer practice number 4, pray until something happens. And the Bible quote is from Luke. And he said to them, suppose one of you has a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say to him, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread, for a friend of mine has arrived and I have nothing to set before him. And he answers from within, do not bother me, the door is already locked and my children are in bed. I cannot get up and give you anything. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give him anything because he is his friend, at least because of his persistence, he will finally get up and give him something. Many years ago, I had a friend who was trying to get his first job. Still in high school, he decided that he wanted to get a job at McDonald's. It's a very common first job, right? And so every day after school, he got dressed professionally and he went to McDonald's and he asked the manager for a job. His persistence did indeed pay off, and within a month, he had gotten his job at McDonald's, and he learned the lesson that persistence that kept him moving on and moving up as he got bigger jobs, as he moved on through college and all those things. He just showed up every day. So when we were going to get into some more details about some prayer methods in a minute, but we start with this praying until something happens, because this is kind of a huge piece. It can be a big piece of the puzzle that sometimes is missing. Because praying until something happens means to stay the course. It means to stay focused about what we wish will come to happen. It means don't lose sight of where you're trying to go. And what something happens can mean several different things. It could be the outcome you were affirming, like a new lecture. It could be that something better or something different fulfills that need that you were looking for. Or it could be that you've gotten clarity that the thing that you thought you wanted isn't what you want. So that could also be the something, is that the something you thought you wanted isn't what you want. So pray until something happens. Stay the course. Don't lose track. Don't forget, oh, that's a nice idea, and then flutter on to the next thing. If it's something that you really want clarity about, or you want, stay focused. Number 5, practice seeing. And this quote is from Genesis. Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give to you. And this is when God is giving Abram all the lands. Now, children know how to use their imagination to explore the world of things that they desire. They know, in imaginations, they'll know exactly how the room that they've set up, where everything is, even though you might see a blank room. They know exactly how to use the new toy that they've been wanting and what it'll feel like to play with it and what it'll sound like and what it'll taste like and everything, right? But children and artists and designers aren't the only ones that are blessed with the ability to see beyond the physical here and now. Now, some of you, I'm sorry, have been taught to be practical and reasonable about your plans and desires. But I say baloney. In my parents' house, there was a whiteboard that we used to communicate what was going on. This was, of course, before text messaging. And someone wrote on it, "Dreams come in a size too big so that we may grow into them." This is attributed to the actress Josie Bissett. Dreams come in a size too big so that we may grow into them. So, if we truly believe we have a calling to do something, then use your power of imagination to see it. Just because we don't know how that's going to happen, that's really not the point. See it. If it's a trip somewhere, get pictures of the location that you want. Cut out a picture of yourself and stick it on the beach or on top of the mountain or whatever it is that you want to do. See yourself there. Make it a little video in your mind of what it will feel like to do those things or to be there, to experience it, to taste it, whatever those sensory things are. If it's a new business venture, see yourself meeting with clients and feeling the joy of doing something you love or making the difference that you feel like that new venture would make. See yourself making the steps and at the, being at the ends going, oh, look at all those things that fell into place for me. Sure, it's going to require some stretching, some growing, some learning. But anything worth doing usually does, right? So use your imagination and see what it is that you want to have come forth. And you will achieve those things. See yourself in the movie you are creating. Prayer practice number 6 is to pray for your loved ones. And this is from Philippians. I thank my God every time I remember you, consistently praying with joy in every one of my prayers for all of you. Now, part of what we do as social beings is support one another. One of the ways we do this is by praying with one another. Now, this can be a tricky thing to wrap your mind around theologically, because if we're moving away from a form of prayer that says we need to ask some divine being outside of us to fix something for us, we need to know where we're, what are we doing instead when we say we're praying with someone? Well, one of the fundamental steps of the unity prayer method, which we will cover in depth at a later time, is realization. Realization is the moment when the absolute truth of health, abundance, wisdom, whatever, etc., is known to the very core. Traditionally, a unity prayer could go on for as long as it takes to complete the knowing of the realization step. So that's when you're really in that moment that I really do know the truth, that divine healing, or that divine, actually it's not even healing, it's wholeness, the divine wholeness, or the abundance. When that complete absolute knowing happens, that's the realization moment. Rosemary Fillmore. She was the granddaughter of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And she was the first person to be born, and as far as we know, the only person to be born at Unity Village. And she told this story about her childhood. You see, she was very sick. She was a young child. She was very sick. And her grandfather, Charles Fillmore, came over that evening to pray by her bedside. And he sat by her bedside and prayed in this realization step. Not, oh, please God, heal my granddaughter. He sat in quiet prayer by her bedside all night long. And when he felt that complete feeling of realization, he gave thanks. And she lived a very long life, so she obviously got better. After that, her fever broke, and off she went. All night long. And I think that's something sometimes we forget when we're praying for something for ourselves. We're like, okay, well, I put a couple minutes into it, so that's good enough. Well, sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. Now, I did not say that you should skip visiting the doctor, by the way, if you're ill. Doctors have a lot of wisdom and knowledge as well. But Charles Fillmore would say, pray and then go to doctors as God directs. So what does your wisdom tell you you need to do? Maybe it says you need to put a heat pack on it, and all of a sudden you feel better and you realize you don't need to go. I don't know what it is. But use that power of wisdom that's inside you. Find that realization. So, when you're praying for another, it's possible that you know a specific prayer that a loved one is wishing to have prayed for. And if so, you can certainly use your power of imagination, like I said, to visualize that prayer with them and do all of that and affirm they're progressing on their journey and seeing their divine absoluteness of all that. But you can also lift your loved ones in prayer without having a specific thing in mind. Because I don't know about you, but I would prefer not to have a whole bunch of people saying, assuming they know what I need through their own filters. And so what if you just paused in your day, saw a loved one in your mind or in your heart, and affirmed, I know that so-and-so is in every day and every way expressing more and more of the truth of who they are, which is perfect health, love, wisdom, and joy. That's all there is to it. Because when we affirm the highest good for ourselves and for others, the details of which relationship and which job and which solution and which da-da-da-da-da-da, well, they're just not as important as knowing that the highest good will occur. Because sometimes you think this is the answer, and we've all probably been there. We think that this is the answer, and that doesn't happen, and then something else happens a month later, and you go, oh, that was the actual answer. Okay, I get it. So, having a goal in mind and also knowing that it can be better than what we imagined. Which leads us into prayer partners, which is practice number 7. And this is a quote you probably have heard before, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. So I say taking quiet time for meditation by oneself is very necessary, and it's also a wonderful practice to have a prayer partner. A prayer partner is someone we practice our prayer requests with, who can affirm your requests with you. A prayer partner can be someone to hold a high watch when we're going through a difficult time, or maybe we're having a hard time remembering our oneness. They are there to celebrate our joys, and they can lovingly remind us when we say when we've gotten maybe distracted from what we have truly want. And within the agreement of being a prayer partner with someone, we have the choice to allow each other to be honest when we struggle, so that we can lift each other up. Now, obviously, such a partnership can be set up in whatever way is comfortable for the people in it. Obviously, because that is what gives us the most open hearts to be able to participate. But often, many people do their prayer partnership in a 15-minute phone call once a week, where requests are shared, and then there's a prayer. Now, I'm suggesting that we set up some prayer partnerships here today, if you would like. And I suggest making a commitment just for the next month, till mid-February. And then at that time, you can reevaluate or see if it's something you want to continue, or maybe you can create a partnership with someone else. Feel it out. So I got these cute little stickers, smiley face stickers. And so if finding a prayer partner is something you're interested in doing, you can get a little sticker, stick it on, and when you're socializing and stuff after church, you can say, oh, you've got a sticker, would you like to be my prayer partner? And you can talk about that and set it up and exchange phone numbers or decide how you want to do it. So there you go. So in review, pray until something happens. Something can be a lot of different things, but pray until something happens. Use your persistence. Practice seeing. Use your imagination to envision what you desire and see it done. Pray for others with clarity that their needs are met. And finally, consider having a prayer partner. You know, I told you last week that 15 minutes of your day dedicated to prayer and meditation is only 1%. 1% of your day, 15 minutes. Now, I am 100% certain that if you take some of these ideas and use just 1% of your day consistently, that you will see those positive changes happening in your life. So, let's go out and pray up our lives.